This episode of Ticket Volume is brought to you by us, Invigate. Get service operations under control in no time. Get 1 free month of our software solution by going to try.invigate.com. Ticket Volume is proud to present the best-selling author of Leadership Distilled, Serving with Purpose. He's also the Director of Technology Experience for Power Design, Inc. Formerly, he was a program manager for the district of Pasco County and international IT speaker for Service Management World and SDI's upcoming Spark Conference in October. Welcome to Ticket Volume, news and information for improving IT experiences. I am your host, Matt Barron, and each week I chat with different leaders to share insights on service management, technology, whatever's piquing our interest in the moment. And this episode is going to be more of that. I hope you're having a great day and a great week and a great summer. I also hope that you leave a comment, connect with us, share our podcast with someone, or get involved in any way, shape, or form. For now, though, welcome to Ticket Volume, Dr. Joshua Nelson.
Hey, thanks, Matt. I appreciate you having me, and thank you for such a kind introduction there.
My pleasure. We try to give all of our guests a kind introduction, at least make it a little warm here. And I love the inclusion of doctor. We don't get a lot of doctors on here. So tell us, what was your doctorate in? What did you study?
So I have a doctorate in business administration with an emphasis in information systems and enterprise resource management. Quite the long mouthful, but I finished that up in about 2015, and that's shortly after that I wrote my book.
And what's great is our audience actually understands what that is, like an MBA that's going to focus on the things that we actually care about in our industry, right? Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about your experience, because what's amazing to me is that you found this position in an enterprise where they are truly focusing and truly investing in the employee experience, right? Is that kind of a fair summary of what your goal is in your position?
Yeah, so Power Design is a multi-trade contractor, right? But we are tech-driven. So one of the differentiators that we have is we're heavily focused on how to apply technology to improve the product we deliver. And that can definitely encompasses experience across the board, whether that's for our customer experience or even our employee experience, right? As you know, XM kind of broadens across many different areas. And one of the areas that Power Design took advantage of was the technology experience, right? Because that impacts almost everything we do nowadays.
Yeah. And it feels like it's something easier to cover. So we'll cover just a couple of that acronym you dropped there, XM. So there's EX, which is employee experience. There's CX, which is customer experience. And XM stands for experience management, which I think I would describe it as the discipline that concerns itself with those two others.
Absolutely. And I think it goes beyond just those two, right? Because you could also have your product experience, your brand experience, et cetera, which is why I typically land on XM, because it's just simpler to encapsulate everything we're doing. Because I think it's really difficult to separate one from the other, right? EX ultimately impacts CX and vice versa.
And there's someone in our audience right now that's saying, why haven't they said TX, total experience, yet? Because, of course, we're coming up with more acronyms every day. But what I like about XM and experience management is because it's more like service management. You know, and I constantly am trying to paint this picture for myself, because these concepts are all just in our heads. There's product management, there's service management, and there's experience management. And having those three as disciplines and teams at an organization, number one, is a luxury. But number two, that really feels like that's kind of the way that we're going. Does it feel that way to you?
Yeah, I think experience management, it's probably something we've been doing, right, a long time. It's just we didn't actually give it a name, which we tend to do a lot, right? I mean, even last week on your pod, talked about OCM. There was a period of time when that didn't have a name either, right? But we still did it. And there's always going to be an element of what we do. And I think what's interesting about XM and really all of the management areas that you talked about is they all interweave, right? So it's really what we're talking about now is focusing in on a discipline of someone it's like metrics. You put metrics up on the scoreboard, you're going to hit that metric. I've never met an IT person who can't hit what you tell them to focus on. And so that's what we're doing with experience management. We're saying, hey, this is important enough to focus on, and let's set targets, let's set goals, and let's go achieve them.
Yes. And you can have that team trickle into the projects and into the individual teams that are in an organization to spread the proselytize the message as much as you need to spread the word. But let's talk about your teams, because you live in the technical space specifically. So what teams are you a part of? Who do you have that's going to help pave the way for you?
For sure. So we're really fortunate, over the last 4 years, that's how long I've been at Power Design, we've been able to really set ourselves up to provide a contact point, really a single contact point for all end user experiences. So I have 3 sub teams underneath my area. We call ourselves Atlas. So all things logistics and support, kind of pride ourselves on holding things up, right? A little play on the Greek mythology there. But with that, we have a support team, your traditional support team. The one thing I will say that differentiates ours a little bit is we also handle logistics. So whether that's shipping, receiving, those types of things. But then we also have an experience team that oversees kind of product release, feedback gathering, as well as proactive efforts. We are heavily focused on trying to solve problems before they occur. And then we recently just added the adoption team. So what are the challenges with using the tool that we just released, right? Because in this world of rapid acceleration of release, you still need someone to make sure that someone's using the technology you put out there. So really, whether it's at the product release, the product support, or the product adoption, we are there to support our end users. And that's the experience we're trying to manage and really shape.
So I've got my own opinion about that, because I think, again, it feels like a luxury, but what do you think? Does it make sense to be organized that way? Do you appreciate having the concept, the operation, the logistics elements all in one?
Yeah, so I mean, it definitely provides its own unique set of opportunities, right? However, I will say, I think that in another decade or so, I think you're going to see a lot more shifting towards this. Because from an end user perspective, and when they're concerned with their technology, they don't really care whether it's a dev problem, an infrastructure problem, and they shouldn't need to, right? If I call in to get service from another company, it doesn't matter who at that company had the issue. All they care about is, can you solve my problem, as an IT entity, and fulfill your purpose here at the business and be that strategic partner. And so I love the fact that we're able to do that much, and it is a luxury in the fact that we're on the cutting edge of it. But I also think that luxury provides luxurious results, right, for our customers and for our employees. So the ROI on what we're doing, I think, is definitely justifiable. And like I said, I think in about a decade or so, you're going to see a shift more and more towards kind of that one inclusive experience management side when it comes to service management. I mean, you even see it with acronyms, right? ITSM is out there now. It's same thing.
We shouldn't release all these acronyms into the wild. It's dangerous.
Exactly. We need our own acronym dictionary to carry around.
We have one. Yeah, we definitely have. At every company I've worked at, we've always started an acronym dictionary for lots of different reasons. Mm-hmm. Searching is definitely one of them.
We integrated that into our chatbot, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
You want to know what an acronym means.
It's so useful. It's so for new hires. There's so many uses where it just makes sense. And the same thing with logistics. I remember when our desktop services team got their own FedEx account, and it changed the way that we thought about end user computing in a completely different light. Sure, the shipping budget went up. Of course it did. But the service we were able to provide, the next day service we were able to provide for end user compute was off. It was off the records. We hit it out of the park with that, just having that small thing. And I can imagine with a building company, that the amount of logistics that you have is unprecedented. You've got shipping containers and site trailers and site Wi-Fi and all these things that need to be shipped out to the locations and managed. That's got to be a huge overhead.
So we do, I just want to clarify on one thing because I don't want to take too much credit, right? We do help with the site Wi-Fi and the shipping internally of kind of more of that small parcels. We have an actual a separate entity somewhat from PDI called PDR, Power Design Resources, that actually manages a lot of the freight type of shipping.
Okay, freight.
I want to give credit where credit's due.
Love it. Yeah, shout out those teams, right? You know they're swooping in to help you and vice versa.
100%. It's a team effort for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So then, and you've got OCM, you've got organizational change management under your umbrella too. I already know that that's going to be a huge win. We don't even have to cover that because every service desk I've ever worked on, we always were tightly wound with the trainers, learning and development in HR, and of course any OCM. Again, it felt like luxury, but any OCM component you could have on a project, it was always nice to have. So let's talk a little bit about experience, because this is one of the things where technology and experience, and there's a lot of questioning. People don't understand where the wheels hit the road and what's driving the wheels. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about another acronym, this XLA, or Experience Level Agreement acronym. What do you think about it? Are you using it? What do they look like to you?
Yeah, so XLAs are interesting, right? It's one of those things that sounds great, sounds like something we want to focus on, but then when you talk to people, they're always like, well, I'm not exactly sure what qualifies as an XLA or an SLA or an SLO, or, just, again, back to the acronym challenge. And, for me, I always tell people not to get caught up in the semantics of it, right? XLA, in my opinion, is just another agreement that you have with the company. And yes, it's experience focused and it's attached more to the emotion side of it rather than the metric. This is the what statistics. However, I think that you're probably already capturing XLAs, whether or not you're calling them that, right? Like CSAT, NPS, those types of things all tie into your emotional connectedness. And that really is what an XLA is. The challenge is those things existed before we had the term XLA. So now they kind of live in this SLA world, but they probably should be XLAs. And that's why I just tell people not to get hung up on it. Measure what matters and you'll be okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, actually. Measure what matters and you'll be okay, because that's kind of how it works. When you're starting off and you're starting to think, I mean, even if you're just a small shop, let's say you're one person supporting a 100-person company, you've got XLAs. It's just the emotional responses that people give you. And they might not be codifying them into emails or into tickets, but they'll tell you, I hate this service and here's why, or I really don't like Google Drive and here's why. The stuff just disappears. I can't find it. It's those complaints, those emotional gripes, those concerns that people have about the services you're providing, that we never really had a good method of capturing and understanding and continuing to have that conversation until we've come to this point. And next thing is they're always pushing this. They're always saying, everything looks green on the outside, but it's red on the inside. Or we ship broken computers all the time. So let's stop doing that. And I feel like this really is like the next level of service. If you are truly looking to innovate your IT service delivery, this is one of the spots that you should start looking right away is these experiences and harvesting, like you said, the CSAT and NPS scores, customer satisfaction net promoter scores, and the content that goes with them. Because that's what you're going to focus on, right?
Yeah, and I think you really hit a strong point just a second ago, right? You said even if you're a one-man shop or a one-person shop, right? At the end of the day, when you interact with someone, take out the technology piece, right? But when you interact with somebody, you have an opportunity to make their day better or worse. It's very unlikely that their day is going to stay exactly the same after they interact with you. So if you can continuously make someone's day better, you're taking care of XL. Like, it doesn't have to be an overly complex, structure. And I know in IT, we like to put our frameworks in, we like to have our structure, and there's definitely value in that. I do tons of structure and framework. It's probably absurd how much I actually have in place. But in the same token, right, I think, especially when you're talking about trying to relate it to, some of the frontline staff or just other people in the organization, that maybe this XM concept seems foreign. It really boils down to, did you make the interaction, did that person leave better than they were when they first came to you?
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I'm already seeing like just the simple diagram with the diamond. Is it going to be better or worse? You get to decide. This is the decision point in the flow where you get to decide, am I going to make this better or am I going to make this worse? And even if
oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, think of the power of the organization where everybody goes in with that mindset, right? If every single person is trying to make whoever they interact with or whatever they do just a little bit better, that incremental power, and just think of it with the ripple effect, right? I mean, it's incredible what can be done with just a little bit of effort from a lot of people.
Yeah, because even if they're calling in about something that's just stale, it's just been sitting there, just letting them know that you are going to take care of it, giving them an end date or an end time for when you're going to get back to them, just picking up that one ball sometimes is enough to make them happy.
Exactly.
To make their day better.
Right. And then, like I said, that trickles down, right? So that person is happier. That means that either their direct report or their colleague, they treat better, which makes them happier. And, it goes beyond the professional into the personal. And it's just, I hate to sound, super optimistic Mary Poppins style here, but that is the truth, right? That we have that choice every day, make things better and make things more difficult.
Yep. Yeah, you're in good company. I'm the relentless optimist too, and sure enough, the pessimists in the audience right now are screaming at their podcast devices, saying that's not how it really works, and that's fine too. We invite those people to the conversation and to the team because we need us optimists, us hopeless optimists. We need realists as well.
Well, and I hire certain people that have opposite points of view because I need some of that too, right?
Yeah, we need skepticism. Sometimes you're right. There's a problem we can't make better. And sure enough, we're going to make their day worse. Like there's nothing we can do about it. But we can at least be there emotionally for them and professionally for them.
Absolutely.
Hopefully anyway. So I love that your description of XLAs. I love your approach to them. It's very clear. It's very well thought out. And when I think about experience management, I think about the design life cycle, which a lot of times, if you're putting it into projects, you start off a good project or like service design as part of research, and then you analyze that research. You come up with insights and like, oh, this is what we need to do, or this is what we need to change or build, and then hopefully you're making towards progression. I'm just describing the app dev life cycle basically. And it starts with research. And so often I've had problems just convincing people to do the research, to just, have calls, talk to people, capturing the information that you're having as part of that research and then doing analysis. Does your team have research? Do you do research? Do you conduct research? And what does it look like?
Yeah, so we actually, at least once a year, sometimes semi-annual, based on bandwidth and availability, right? We do pulse surveys. So the pulse survey is what we send out to all of the individuals that I don't sit down with personally and have a conversation with. So I obviously can't meet with 2,800 people one-on-one. But I do meet with all the department heads every year, at least once, like I said, and I take, based on feedback from those original meetings with them, they said, hey, things are good for me, but I'm a director, I'm a department head, whatever the case might be. So I would expect that I'm probably all right, but I need you to go find out how my teams are doing. So what we did is we actually created this pulse survey. It's a simple one question, how satisfied are you with your technology experience at Power Design? Um, 5-point scale. And I basically put all of that data together. I anonymize it so that they can't compare department to department. And then I sit down and actually have those conversations with the department heads and say, hey, this is how your team is feeling. Have you heard anything? What are you feeling? So it's a combination of quantitative with qualitative data. And of course, the pulse survey does allow for the opportunity for them to actually put in comments. So we get a little bit of actionable feedback there. Sometimes, it's great when you get the, hey, you guys are awesome feedback. Can't do much with that. But we definitely go through and try to find all of the items that, could be improved and work on that. And then we try to break it out by different sections too. So we not only do the department heads, but we meet with some of the senior leaders out in the field, because obviously we're construction companies. We have project sites, and the experience of being an office worker versus a construction project site worker is different. They both involve technology, but of course the different needs are something that we want to capture as well. So that's one way that we really try to tap into as much data. And one of the things I'm really excited to be doing with the adoption side of things is we're going to be able to focus on feedback about products and the existing life that we have versus product release, which is going to be, as we're rolling things out. But one of the things I heard from your podcast, I think it was last week's, and sorry, I keep plugging your podcast, I'm sure.
Love it.
But was the fact that we have an option when we're communicating to either basically tell somebody or have a conversation with them. And so I actually met with my IT experience manager this morning, and I said, listen, when we announce these rollouts and when we're sending out communications, I want to make sure that we have an area to say, questions, thoughts, concerns, let us know now, right? Before we roll it out. So we're capturing feedback before a rollout, we're capturing feedback after a rollout, and we're capturing feedback about just your everyday. And it's a lot of work. I don't want to downplay the amount of effort that this takes. So although, you referenced as a luxury, and it is, but there's a lot of work that goes into making sure that the value is there, right?
Dude, I'm getting goosebumps because it's so right. I've encouraged people to do research for years, and so often it falls on deaf ears. It goes nowhere. No one has the time, so no one makes the time to either read through it, analyze it, or even just sit down and read it together. Because that's where the true value of that research comes in. Sure, you can, send, for instance, you could send app developers out to a build site, and they could see, oh, this is how we use this app in the field. They have to use it on their cell phones all the time, and they got 30 people yelling at them at the same time. That research, it affects that one person, but the real true value is when we can all get that together, so we all don't have to visit the field every day.
Right. And that all plays through another acronym out there, right? CES, right? So customer effort score. I think the easier we make the technology, the better the experience. And if I was going to say one metric to focus on, if you really want to try to hone in on an XLA or XM or whichever term you want to associate with it, it is that CES. The easier you can make it for somebody to use the technology that they have, the happier they're going to be with their technology. Because let's be honest, you're not mad when your streaming service at home works, but when it lags or it won't load, even if it takes 3 seconds to load, you're like, what is going on, right? So if we can remove the barriers or the challenge or the work, then it's that much more enjoyable to use.
Yes. Effort goes down, satisfaction goes up. It feels like a market trend and something that we can rely on in a lot of cases, because even if something breaks, as long as the effort isn't difficult, then we're going to be at least happy, because we're essentially very lazy human beings.
No, you're right. I mean, and it's so funny because if you actually have an experience like that, you are willing to go tell people. I think I had a problem one time with Uber Eats, right?
Yeah.
They didn't bring me the right food. I clicked a button. They said, "Oh, sorry, here's a refund."
Yeah.
Like, I clicked one button, got my money back, and I still had food. It was the wrong food, but I still had some. And so I mean, right now I'm sharing it, and that PR that they're getting just from that little bit is well worth whatever refund I got of $12 or whatever it was. Right?
Yeah, the margin they lost was $1 on that.
Exactly, and they get me talking about it because that was probably 2 years ago.
Yeah, you can totally do the same thing with your IT department. I know that it happens because I've seen it. When you start up those new hire trainings, people talk about that for their entire career. Mm-hmm. They repeat it over and over. Make sure you go to the new hire training, and it just works. When it works, it works.
Absolutely.
So you obviously are focused on the technology experience. You're really focused on that, and it's sure that's going to affect the employee experience. Mm-hmm. But are there other areas in power design that focus on the employee experience holistically? Do you partner with HR? Is that a function in HR?
Yeah, so there actually is a director of employee experience and a director of customer experience as well. So the three of us do collaborate and work together quite often, actually, and try to see where those synergies can align. And we're trying to look for trend analysis in the fact, going back to your research piece, does an increase in EX result in a positive increase in CX, right? Or vice versa, a negative impact. And that's really allows us, again, to be that business strategic partner in the fact that we can provide insights into where the limited resources that any business have are going to have the best impact, right? Yes. So that's the ultimate goal of XM as well, is to ensure that we give the best experience that we can while also allowing the business to continue to grow and be successful.
Amazing. It's such an amazing story. I'm so glad there are companies and that our industry has come to this point, but I'm so glad that there are companies putting it into practice and really affecting people's lives with this, because I see the optimism. So I hope that it's working out. But what advice would you give to people in your position that are either trying to get started, understand, do you have advice, or did you just step into this situation?
Yeah, no, definitely didn't just step into it. I've been in this field now for a little over 20 years, so it's skills built over time. But I'll tell you, if I was going to tell 18-year-old me what the best thing to do, it ultimately comes down to kind of what the XM logic is as well, and it's focused on relationships, right? It's the people. You can think about all the old sayings of it's who you know and that type of thing, but honestly, if you want to make change in an organization, having the right people on your side allows that to happen. I think it's John Maxwell says leadership is influence, and that's it, right? Nothing more, nothing less. And it's true. If you want to make change in an organization, you have to be able to influence that organization. And the best way you're going to have influence is to build relationships. It's what power design's been built on and how they've been able to be so successful. And it's something that I have also tried to model throughout my career. And I think it definitely lends to allowing you to make that change. It's not going to happen overnight. 4 years ago, there was no director of technology experience here at Power Design. That was something that kind of developed after a couple of years of really trying to improve service and focus on items that would have been encapsulated under XM, but maybe we didn't label it that at that time. So it's something that's grown. So I wouldn't expect you to say, okay, well, now I'm your friend, so let's make experience management happen here at the org. But I think if you can build those relationships, you have a much stronger chance of moving the needle in the direction it needs to go than if you just try to force it on people.
Nailed it. Yep. Build trust, make friends, talk to people. They'll want to change just the way that you want to change.
Exactly. And honestly, it's contagious, right?
Yeah.
You come into work every day, going back to the analogy earlier, if you come into work every day wanting to make things better, that in turn makes other people want to help make things better. And ultimately, it leads to experience management.
Yes. Totally agreed. Okay, Josh, where can people connect with you to learn more?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a great way to get a hold of me. Obviously, you can check out my book on Amazon if you're looking for some follow up material. And also, I will be speaking at the upcoming HDI event in Orlando in November, the SDI event in October. So, whether you're stateside or across the pond, you can come hang out with me if you want.
I love it. Thank you so much for taking some time to be on Ticket Volume today, Mr. Nelson.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
And for our guests, did you know that you can join? You could be a guest on our podcast, or you could come to a live recording. Register today at ticketvolume.com and click on live or register. Thank you for listening. You can change and improve this podcast by DMing me, leaving a comment, shouting it into the void on the internet. Someone will hear it. And speaking of Ticket Volume, did you know that this podcast is brought to you by Invigate? It's an all-in-one, fit-for-purpose service desk solution with integrated asset management designed to let you focus on supporting your organization without arduous implementations and high total cost of ownership. In fact, teams from Toyota, NASA, and McDonald's use Invigate to manage requests, automate workflows, and centralize inventory data so that they can focus on delivering better service. Because better service is better business.